So obviously, you have a great career at Ohio State. Obviously, the combine just happened. You've seen a lot of guys from Ohio State, do well. Kind of just talk about your experience at the combine. How was it? Because I know for me, that shit is stressful. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know like all the different meetings that you have to have. You got to get up, take a random drug test at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then they want you to go run a 40. Kind of just get the people like what they don't know.
I mean, to me, the combine is the dumbest shit in the world. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like seriously. And excuse my language, but it really is. It's ridiculous. I mean, you're asking these guys to go out and to have all of these different meetings, which I understand that. Yeah. If you want to just do sole meetings there, I'm okay with that. Go through a medical check with a bunch of different doctors. That part is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then go out and work out and supposed to be able to perform at their best while just going through the rigors of the interviews, the rigors of being poked and prodded, going through 20 different x-rays for a multitude of teams, a bunch of different MRIs, and then guys trying to play these psychological games with you in these meetings.
Right.
That isn't the way football is going to be played. I mean, when you play football, you're in a comfortable environment, right? You practice throughout the week. You go home the night before, you prepare, you take care of your body, and then you go out and you deliver on the football field. So they're asking you to go and be in an uncomfortable situation, and they're not asking you to do that when it's time to play on Sunday. So I don't get the parallel as to why they believe that they should do it that way and operate that way. I think it's ridiculous. I could see in the next couple of years that thing coming to an end with the more guys that say, you know what, it isn't for me. The higher profile guys saying, I'm gonna
step away running, they're only doing this.
Right.
Or that.
I mean, you seen a couple guys. You had a couple guys that blew some hamstrings this year. Some of the bigger guys. But it's like, why do you have offensive linemen running a 40 when they're 6'8", 350 pounds?
Yeah,
like,
makes no sense.
Come on, man.
Is like pro day at the facility? Is that better? Is that more realistic?
Probably more comfortable.
So
right.
It's much more comfortable, much more realistic, and I get the combine for guys who necessarily won't get the eyes and ears at their pro days. So you understand for a certain demographic of guys. But when you go to the big schools, I mean, it's not needed. I mean, at Ohio State, you're going to get the same amount of coaches, scouts, GMs that'll be at the combine.
Yep. True. Yep.
So there's really no need for you to go out there and perform at the combine. Outside of now, you're going to have people kind of naysaying, oh, this guy didn't want to do it at the combine, which it don't make sense. It didn't make sense for me for C.J. Stroud to go and throw at the combine. I mean, they wanted to see it, and he did well, so fine and dandy, but it wasn't a necessity. So for me, I hated the combine.
Did you do all events too, Beanie?
So I went to the combine. I ran the 40. I benched, and that was it.
How many times
broad jumped.
How many times you benched 225?
I want to know that too.
I think I did 24 times at the combine.
I was saying, because I seen you hit 315 for like 10, like it was a joke out there before.
Literally, I could have kept going at the combine.
I quit at 24.
I mean, this is an average, a good number for a running back. So
I mean, that's another thing. It's like once you get to 20,
it's like what more you need to see?
I'm strong.
Yeah,
if you watch my film, you can see I'm strong.
Yeah.
Why I need to go over and hit 30?
Well, you want to blow a pec out or something, like because you're doing 37.
Yeah,
that don't make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, you did the combine, you had the pro day and all that. Obviously, you did good enough to get drafted in the first round.
Right.
Kind of talk about that. I mean, you get. I know, being your friend, we thought you were gonna go top 10.
Yeah. Yep.
You ended up going 31 to Arizona. Just kind of talk about how you felt about that, like the experience, like the whole.
I was like literally devastated.
I remember. I remember.
All up into the day of the draft, I thought I was going to Jacksonville.
I was going to say, where did you think you was going?
I thought I was going to Jacksonville.
Because I remember at Pro Day.
Yeah, their running back coach was like, oh, we're taking him. I mean, there's no question. He didn't even want me to run the 40 after I ran my 40 at Pro Day. He's like, don't even do it again. Don't even do nothing else. We drafted him. So, I'm under the impression they had.
Who'd they draft instead?
They ended up drafting an offensive lineman.
Okay.
So, at one point in time, it was the two-headed monster, Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yep.
And Freddie T had just went on the year before. I think he went to the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
They wanted that two-headed monster back. Like, we're taking you. So I'm like, all right, cool. Worst case scenario, I'm going to go here. I meet with Cleveland. And Cleveland's like, well, I mean, you're on our radar. And then Seattle I was really high on their radar too. Yeah. So I had no idea I would be dropping all the way to 31. So draft day comes about. We get through the first 5 picks. Cleveland picked number 5. They end up dropping out to like number 16 at the time. And I'm like, all right, number 9, I'm not going to Cleveland right there at 5, but I'm expected to go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville comes by at 9. They draft somebody else. Shh. All right, Cleveland's at 16. That's my ceiling right there.
Yeah.
Cleveland ended up dropping back in the draft, and I'm like, oh, shit. And then I get to 31, and it was crazy, right? Because there was a couple of teams I necessarily didn't want to go to. And one of the teams ended up being the Cardinals. Yeah. And, the reason being is because, one, the Arizona Cardinals, they were a passing team. It was like, they don't need me there. I mean, I need to go somewhere that's going to run the football, run it early and often. I don't want to go necessarily where Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden is.
Yeah.
Weren't a great fit for me at all. But it was crazy because looking back, it was 2 teams I didn't want to go to. It was the Arizona Cardinals and it was the New Orleans Saints. And if you remember, we had bowl games in New Orleans and in Arizona. I was like, man, these are 2 places I really don't
really
care to be and play here.
Yeah.
And then looking at it from a football standpoint, it just didn't necessarily make sense for the type of player that I was. Like, I can go to any other teams but these 2. Arizona gets the 31st pick, and that's where I end up going.
So even with all that kind of feels, you still getting drafted to the NFL, right? So you're like, all right, well, I'm about to be a Cardinal. That feeling of, look, once I remember talking to you, you're like, even before I got drafted, my life was already a little bit different because you had some endorsements and some stuff that was cranking, within the rules at that time, right? But it's like, once they say your name, no matter what number draft pick, your life's never the same again, Beanie, forever, and neither is your family's. So, like, that build up and actual realization has to be unbelievable, right?
Oh, 100%. Once, I got over the fact that, oh, man, I didn't go to the teams I necessarily wanted to go to. Regardless, it was a dream come true. I mean, this is something I have been working for my entire life to get to the National Football League. So, to be called and to be on TV, to be right there with my brother, my parents, siblings, and friends, I mean, it was surreal. Obviously, it's going to happen, but when it happens, it still hits a little bit different. So I was still pumped. And like you said, I mean, life was never the same. And going to Ohio State, quite frankly, life was never the same for me. But going into the National Football League, to where you got this certain amount of money, and then you got this prestige with the Shield being the National Football League. I mean, it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Where was you at when you got that direct deposit?
Oh, man. So
that first check.
I didn't get a direct deposit. I got an actual check.
Okay.
Which was crazy. And I actually appreciated doing it this way. I didn't get like the big boatload out the gate, right? I think my first check from them was maybe $200,000.
Okay.
And I had already had over $1 million in the bank by the time I got to $200,000. So
he told me that in the gym one day. He's like, before I got the first check, I already had like $800,000 in the bank. I was like, okay.
So I got that, and it was cool, but it was.
No,
you're like, it's cool, but I got 800 already.
Now, did you set it up that way, like in your contract, where you wanted it to be kind of like split up, or did you have it in a way where you could have got your?
So it wasn't necessarily something that I had talked about it being set up that way. I think it just happened. It happened. The payout structure just happened to be that way.
Gotcha.
And I was fortunate for it to end up being that way, because when you're a young guy and you get a bunch of money, you tend to spend a lot of money quickly. And, I spent some money my first year, first 2 years in the NFL. So I was fortunate to get a lot of stuff on the back end.
Yeah. What'd you get? Like, what'd you buy?
So bought my mama a house.
That feeling, stop there for a sec.
Respect.
Unbelievable. Gotta be.
Dude, that was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
That was the best.
It would be hard
thing.
to press to have anything be better than that.
Right. I mean, the fact that you're going out and you're able, and I had younger siblings still living at home, right? So we come from not the best circumstance in Akron. So to be able to change the zip code of my family and put them in a better situation was incredible. And now we're living in a neighborhood to where, as a kid, we used to ride by and look at the lights, right? We ride by this neighborhood and look at the lights at Christmas time. And now that I'm buying my mama a house here was a surreal and amazing feeling, for sure.
Shit done changed.
Oh, bro. It's changed for real. And I mean, just it's incredible to want to be able to say I was able to do it, but just the fact that you have the resources to be able to. I mean, so I bought my mom a house, car. Bought my dad a car, and I spent a lot of money on dumb shit. Friends were traveling here, we're traveling there, buying siblings, this and that. So it was a good time, nonetheless.
What was the car?
I bought my mom a CTS, Cadillac CTS. And my dad, I think, like a Chrysler 300.
Oh, hell yeah.
And at that time, Chrysler 300s were the shit.
What?
Hell yeah.
Respect, man.
That moment of
that.
your mom seeing the house for the first time, bro, I feel like that's probably got to be just like burnt in your brain, right?
So it's burnt in my brain, but for a different reason. It's like my mom didn't even give me the chance to go out and pick it out. She went and did it on her own. So I got to see the house
For the first time.
and she had already seen it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I mean, obviously, what you played 5 years in the league?
So 4 credit for 5. Yep.
Okay. So 4 years, 5 years. You had, I mean, to play 5 years is a blessing.
Right.
Most guys in the NFL, I mean, your goal is to get to your second contract. Obviously, you going in the first round, you made a pretty good amount of money.
Right.
Just kind of talk about that transition, though, from, Ohio State to the pros. Now you're going to the real world.
Yeah. Let me slow you down a little bit there. So I just want to say, man, for any guy that's watching this, and just for people out there that's watching this, you hear the word like bust or you didn't make it in the league. Well, when a guy signs a contract, whether it's a drafted contract, whether it's free agent, when you put on that NFL jersey or helmet, you are one of a very few individuals to be able to say that you were able to do it. So the hell with all of that shit.
Right.
If you make it that one day, you ain't a fucking bust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're not a bust, or I mean, if you're a free agent and you don't even have the bust title, and people say, "Oh, you didn't make it in the league." So what? I did it.
Right.
Yeah.
You reached a pinnacle in which not many people will ever be able to say that they got the chance.
When
to
people
do
are
it.
like, "Oh, that dude's a scrub," I'm like,
Right.
"You're not a fucking scrub.
How?
He's on the roster.
Right.
Are you on the
How?
motherfucking
Exactly.
roster?"
Yeah.
So, but I had to say that because you hear
Yeah.
a lot of times, where people, talk about bust. I was listening to one of the Kwame Brown podcasts, and people label him as a bust. This dude played multiple years in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, come on. I mean, this.
I mean, I wasn't calling you a bust.
No. I was just speaking of.
Yeah, for sure.
He's
For
just
sure.
getting the clip for the gram, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm getting it for the gram and for people that play the sport or a sport, and you make it to the highest of the highest. I mean, the highest of a company, right, is being the CEO running the shots. Not many people get an opportunity to do that in that field from the business standpoint, let alone the athletic standpoint.
Right.
But going back to your question, man, speaking of the transition, it was different. It was difficult too. I think for a long time, not only myself, but you talk to other former players, we all have this thought process that everybody's going to play 8 to 10 years, and then at the end of that, you're going to ride off into the sunset and maybe do some sports media stuff. But for the most part, live a great, comfortable life and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's not reality. But for a young kid that's, 20 to 23 years old going into the draft, you can't tell them it's going to be any different.
Yeah.
Right.
So when that finally hits a lot of people, it's tough. A lot of guys have identity crisis, right? A lot of guys deal with different, depressions or deal with different anxieties. And a lot of it stems from not knowing what's next. Your life has become routine.
Yep.
Like from the time you're 8 years old, you knew, all right, I need to work out, I need to eat this, I need to go train, I need to play football. That's what you're doing for your entire life.
And you got that structure, man,
Yeah.
with the coach, with the players, with your homies. Like, it's all there.
It's all structured.
Your
and
whole
routine.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Your entire year.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go to class, you got to
Yep.
work out, you got to
Yep,
do this, and then you have coaches around you that's not letting you. You may step out of bounds, but not letting you step too far out of bounds, right?
Yeah.
So they're there to reel you back in. And when you step into the real world, once your playing days are over, it isn't like that anymore.
Yeah.
So there is no longer that structure that you once had, that routine that you once had. Now it's a free-for-all, and you're left to figure it out. I always say, man, it's like a cruise ship, right? A cruise ship, everybody's there. When you're playing, you're like a cruise ship. Everybody's there aboard having a good time with you, right? But the minute that cruise ship goes to dock, everybody gets off. The only people left on that cruise ship is the crew left to clean it and shine it up. But in this case, you are the cruise ship, so nobody's left on that cruise ship. You got to shine yourself up. Everybody's left.
Yeah.
So you got to figure shit out. And at times it can be difficult if you're a guy that doesn't surround yourself with the proper people, if you were a guy that didn't build the proper relationships, or screw all of that, if you just didn't have the know-how in your mind, it can be difficult.